Darren DeVries is being mentioned for the Indiana job, and I brought somebody on who's going to either validify or put it in the trash.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host. This is Locked On West Virginia. Thank you guys for being here. This one's going to be brought to you by Nissan, the 2025 Nissan Armada, all new, guys. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. Guys, I got somebody pretty cool coming on. This is somebody I've been dialoguing with a little bit, talking about this situation with Darren DeVries and how this kind of popped up all of a sudden. So let's bring him on, man. One of the better hosts that we have in Locked On, in my opinion, does an excellent job over at Locked On Hoosiers. Jacob Goins, man. What's up, brother?
Having me on. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. You're good. No, we're happy to be here. Excited to talk about something that has really just come up in the last handful of days. I mean, this is something that I was not fully expecting, and then here we are, and it seems like it started to catch a little wind. So excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, so, we talked on the phone earlier today, and I was just kind of trying to get your vantage point on all this. And I wasn't shocked because Darren DeVries is going to come up for jobs, obviously, after what he's done this year. But I think I was really surprised in some wording you used. It just kind of popped up out of nowhere. Can you kind of talk about where some of the, you don't have to get specific, but where are you hearing some of these things? What parts of the university do you maybe think they're coming from, if you can even reveal anything like that? Not trying to put you on the spot.
Sure. I think for right
like message
now,
boards or,
Yeah. For right now, I do think it is, I'm not going to say just smoke because there's a negative connotation to that, to where, oh, it's not true. People are just talking. I think the conversations are at least being had for his name to be considered, right? I don't think any phone calls have been made. I don't think there's been even contact made between IU and his camp. But I do think as Indiana has slowly crossed names off the list, or vice versa, where people have crossed IU off their list, you got to have a running list, right? In any sort of coaching search, you can't just have one name and hope that it works out. So I think This is what this is, hey, who would make a good fit? Who do we think could work? And while I think DeVries is still kind of off on maybe not the back burner, he's still very fresh in this coaching search. And so I'm not hearing anything official yet. I just think he's somebody that is starting to get thrown in these conversations.
Right. And along with what we talked about, and you're hearing about that, SB Nation put a report out as well earlier. I think it was yesterday it was on the 9th, actually 2 days ago. And it was talking about as the coaching search narrows, you're getting past the likes of Brad Stevens, Dusty May, TJ Otzelberger, Scott Drew, names that you would honestly think that Indiana would have a legitimate shot at. And we've seen a lot of blue bloods go through this here lately. The playing field is so much more even with NIL now. It's no longer the brand power that drives people to a university. What's that been like for Indiana to kind of go through that?
Yeah, look, Indiana in recent years has not been relevant consistently. That's no secret. I'm not afraid to tell you that since I talk about it every single day. But as a brand, yes, it's still IU. It's still Bloomington. It's still Assembly Hall. And so I still think that carries a lot of weight. I really do. For sure. And the NIL money that Indiana has to play with is truly incredible. People don't understand how much money Indiana has and is willing to use to be good at athletics. That's on football and basketball, but of course, talking basketball here particularly. So I think when you start to hear some of those names, like you mentioned, because those are all in the mix or were in the mix of Brad Stevens or Scott Drew or guys like that who have basically come and gone in this coaching search, it is a little painful. It is a little humbling. This is going to be maybe harder than we thought to try and find the future of Indiana basketball because we can't afford Indiana. We can't afford to swing and miss again. We just went through that with Mike Woodson. We thought it was a home run, former player. He was loved by Bob Knight. It just made sense, right? and it just didn't work. And so we've had some bad endings. We've had some flameouts. We've had things that just didn't work. And that's why I think Indiana is going through as many options, as many possibilities as they can. And that's why we've landed here as one of the options to be the next head coach of Indiana basketball.
So let's get a little bit of the state of the program. And you kind of dove into that with the NIL just a little bit there at Indiana. But I mean, if I'm looking at that job, obviously from the outside in, you just assume it's a great job, top 10 job, top 15 job. Absolutely. So when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking it's one of those jobs that everybody aspires to, especially if you're a basketball coach. Where is Indiana on, let's say, like exposure in the Big Ten? Where are they at? You already mentioned NIL, obviously, which is great. You talked about they got a ton of money to spend. So what's their pitch to somebody when they're going to bring a guy in? What are they telling people?
Well, I think there's a lot of positives with the NIL situation. Again, the brand still carries so much weight. And for anybody that happened to grow up anywhere near the area, they grew up in the Indiana, just I guess the hot time to be an Indiana fan, right? When Indiana was good. And so that is a big pitch is come and be that, bring Indiana back to what it can be. You've got one of the most dedicated fan bases in all of college athletics. The Hoosiers are crazy fans. Even when the team sucks, they're still diehard fans. They show up at Assembly Hall. They want Indiana. Yeah, I mean, they just want us to be good. They love basketball here in this state. And so you're selling them on NIL. You're selling them on the fact that you can be the one to bring it back. And if you win here, you are beloved. You are the guy. Now, that comes with a lot of pressure, right? That comes with, people call it a fishbowl, where if you win, everything's great. If you lose, bad things can happen. And I think that's what has maybe turned some people away from it. But if you don't want that, then Indiana doesn't want you. And that's kind of where we stand right now. So again, I think the pitch is you've got everything at your disposal to work with, and you can be the next great coach of Indiana basketball. That comes with a lot of praise, man. That's a big time thing for somebody. And you just have to find the right one who's willing to take that risk and is able to pull it off.
So where do you stand with the list of candidates as they are right now? Let's just use this as a running list right here that I've got pulled up. Let's talk about Brad Brownell, Ben McCollum, Chris Collins, Will Wade, Mark Bine, and Darren DeVries. Sounds like a pretty good grouping of coaches in similar spots. You could argue Brownell is at the top of that list. Do you have a personal opinion about this?
Yeah, that's a pretty updated list, I think, is a good way to put that, because of some of the names that we talked about a little bit earlier that have come and gone, whether they, publicly said they didn't want it or Indiana wouldn't make the call. I'll say this. A lot of Indiana fans wanted Chris Beard, and I just don't think that's going to happen, because that's Indiana.
That's the hire right there. If you're going to do it.
But Indiana has made it known, directly or indirectly, I guess, that if you got a past, we don't want to mess with it. And so whether that's fair or not.
We went through that.
Yeah, you guys know. Yeah, I mean, you guys know, absolutely. And whether you think it's fair or not, it is what it is. That's just kind of where Indiana stands. So with the list, I think Brownell at Clemson's a really, really good option. I talked about him on my show this week, and I think McCollum is really good. The only concern is he's only been doing it for a year at a somewhat major level, right? He's got tons of coaching experience, but you just got to see a little bit more. That's when you start talking, about some of these other names. I don't know if Chris Collins is what the fans are looking for in terms of the splash, sexy, home run, oh my goodness, hire type of thing. So I don't know. I think the list is solid, but I don't think Indiana's done yet. And I think that's a very unofficial list, including with what we're talking about right here, because anybody could pop up at any time. And that's what makes this kind of fun, actually.
Absolutely. Let's go to a quick break, because on the other side of the break, let's talk about Darren DeVries and his relationship with West Virginia. What are some gripes I think he would have, and why he may be a flight risk, and possibly we could lose him. Let's talk about that next, guys. This is Locked On West Virginia with Jacob Goins. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is going to be brought to you by, we love talking about Nissan, guys. Right now, guys, Nissan has an awesome thing going on called the Armada Team of the Week. brought to you by Nissan, of course, and the 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week are, and I know everybody hates to hear this, the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC, going 19-1. Impressive. The Blue Devils were plus minus 434 points in ACC games, largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since UK did it in 1953-1954 Adolph Rupp era. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done. It's clear that our team of the week is out here and ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. And it's segment 2. I don't have a do today, but I do have a Gatorade. In segment 2, I usually crack a do, Jacob. But I don't have one to crack today.
Hey, Gatorade's same kind of color, right? You were drinking the yellow. That's
same
fine.
Company, right?
Yeah.
Same company.
Sure.
So I forgot to tell you to bring something to crack for segment 2.
Man, I missed the memo.
I screwed up again. They'll let me know in the comments. So we got about 400 people watching. Jacob, will you let everybody know real quick before we keep going where they can find you at, what you're doing?
Yeah, Locked On Hoosier, same way you find Locked On West Virginia, YouTube, or wherever you get your audio podcast. It's a daily podcast covering all things Indiana. And right now, yeah, it's a lot of coaching surge. We're talking NCAA tournament. Spring football just started in Bloomington, coming off a college football playoff. So however you get your podcast,
hot ticket
Hoosiers,
right now.
That's right, man. Kurt Signetti just got an extension. We've got a really good transfer portal class. And so if you want to check that out, yep, anywhere you get your podcast or on YouTube, just search Locked On Hoosiers.
Wow, man. Wow. That's great. I'm really glad you've got this momentum for your show and everything right now. You deserve it, man.
Appreciate that, man.
You know, and it's not like you've had the greatest run as Indiana leading up the last few years. So you guys, I mean, it's time for a turn, right? As the world of sports turns. So I want to talk about Darren DeVries and his relationship with West Virginia, because I think that's going to factor in here, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't get and look, I can't out my sources here, but I do know that he didn't get the NIL money that they wanted. It's year one. So who does, right? But they could have made a lot more noise this year. Think about what they were able to do. Minus 35 points a game on paper with Jaden Stone and Tucker DeVries, beating 3 top 10 teams, 4 top 25 teams, beating Kansas in a home opener for the first time in 33 years. Like they have accomplished a lot this year without the services of the best player on the team and another 20 points per game scorer leading Javon Small to have just an incredible year. So, you know, he's done an amazing job with what they had.
Absolutely.
But man, if they would have gave him just $500K more or $1 million more, they could have really had a special year. I think he knows it. I think he knew it then. I'm not saying he resents it. I'm saying that it's got to improve. And if he's going to have these conversations with other teams, West Virginia has to make a pledge and a commitment here, contractually, because he's earned it, contractually and NIL. And we've got it to give. Now, it may not be Indiana's level, but we've, you know, with the revenue sharing model coming in, we're going to be at that 20.5 million sharing. We're going to be able to do it all. So if that's the case, there's no reason we can't compete in basketball and football. And West Virginia's in the Big 12. We have a great basketball history. It's not Indiana, but it's certainly good enough. And I think you could talk a guy like DeVries, who hasn't been a lot of places. He stayed at Creighton for 16 years or whatever it was, or 7, I forget how many years. It was a lot of years. So, you know, this is a guy that I look at and say, we want you. I think, you know, that's the pitch we would say to him, is that as a fan base, we're sold on him.
Sure.
He fits what we need. He fits what we want. He's got the toughness we love. Literally, you know, he plays that Bob Huggins style. Like, there's a lot. So I personally believe we want him here. I think we can make that pitch. But if an Indiana comes calling, or even there is some trepidation for Iowa because that's the home, you know, that's the home state.
Yeah, pulling
even
at the
though
heart.
it's in shambles. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in shambles as a program.
Yeah.
And it's a total rebuild, way worse than what we have. We've got a top probably 5 or 6 basketball facility because Bob Huggins, dedicated his life to make it happen. So it's an interesting thing, man. I don't know. I think if Indiana actually comes calling and throws everything they have at him, it's going to be almost impossible to keep him.
Well, and that's the thing, and that is what is going in the favor of Indiana. You feel like is if IU calls, or if Duke calls, or if Kentucky calls, people not only pick up the phone, they most likely say yes. But I can admit that hasn't always been the case. We've had people shut it down. We've had people say no. And it's because this new era of college basketball where you can be competitive at other places rather than just the big names, blue bloods, old bloods, new bloods, whatever. And you bring up an interesting fact about NIL money because college basketball is so different than every other sport because you don't have to have 80. Yeah, you don't have to have 80 plus good players to be competitive. You need 8.
6. Yeah, 7.
Yeah, 7, whatever. One player can make all the difference in college basketball to make it to the NCAA tournament. And so if they give him that money at West Virginia, maybe he hangs around and tries to see what he can build and be that dude there in West Virginia. But if you go to Indiana, and whether it's him or somebody else, you can get as much as you want. And that one singular player can literally make all the difference. And so it really just depends on if Indiana makes the call. I think he's on the list. He's starting to get brought up more. If it gets to that, then it would probably be a really hard job to turn down, I have to admit.
One other thing I will pitch for West Virginia side of things is, we've got a recruiting class coming in thanks to Chester Frazier and Darren. That is truly, it's probably, it would probably be the best in our school's history. 3 McDonald's All-American candidates.
That's awesome.
3 4-star guys. That's good for anybody these days, especially.
Absolutely.
So, all top 180 guys, and so I think and we have a lot of guys coming back, including Tucker DeVries, who was obviously a 2-time player of the year in the Missouri Valley, that was averaging almost 15 points a game in only 8 games this year. And there's a lot to build on with this team. Could he take it to Indiana or somewhere else? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. But I do think there is something here to build on. And the way they develop freshmen and have been known to do that, I think it's something to talk about because, man, that'd be a double punch in the gut if you're talking this recruiting class. And also Darren and also Tucker. Like it's a lot to lose for us.
Which is what you see nowadays when these coaches jump ship and go somewhere else. I mean, not speaking to DeVries in particular, but in terms of the whole loyalty thing, right? Fans are asking for players to hang around and stay with your program. But these coaches just flake out and go wherever they want to. And they typically take their talent with them. The best example is John Calipari when he left Kentucky and he went to Arkansas. Look at the Razorbacks. It's literally the same Kentucky team from a year ago. They're just wearing Arkansas red instead of Big Blue Nation blue. I mean, it's
great point.
That's how college basketball works nowadays because you want to stick with your coach, stick with the system, and that could happen, whether it's, again, if it's DeVries or if it's anybody else at IU. That's how this game works now, and it can be so beneficial to the hiring team and so crushing to the losing team.
Wow. Yeah, I totally agree, man. This has been a fun conversation. Before we let you get out of here, man, tell everybody one more time where they can find you because you've grown a few hundred people since we did it last.
Yeah. So, again, if you want to check out and tune in to the latest on the Indiana coaching search, the best place to do it is with the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. However you find West Virginia, you can find us the same way. Any of your audio platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, or if you just search Locked On Hoosiers on YouTube, you're going to find it there. Daily posts, daily videos about Indiana football, basketball, hopefully making the NCAA tournament, and then trying to find our new head coach in Bloomington. All that on Locked On Hoosiers.
Awesome, man. You're a super talented guy, man. It's been fun to work with you today. I still got one segment to go, but I'll go ahead and let you bounce unless you want to stay for another one.
I'm good, man. I'm going to let you do your thing. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, Jacob, I appreciate you for coming, and now you're going. I'm sure you probably heard that before, but I've decided
too many times. But hey, that's okay. You had to.
I had to. It was there. It was teed up. I'm a low-hanging fruit kind of guy. All right, man. Thank you for joining, guys. We're going to go to one more quick break, and on the other end of the break, we'll talk about something. Stick around. This is Locked On West Virginia. And this episode of Locked On West Virginia is also going to be brought to you by Return on You. We all know about Return on You around here. Guys, before NIL, deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Well, now with Return on You, you can make a real impact and feel closer to athletes representing the school, West Virginia in this case. With Return on You, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you can contribute, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part is if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's at risk, way free to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the school of West Virginia University. Download the Return on You app now from the App Store and start backing West Virginia athletes the way they deserve with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Return on You and your favorite players. All right, guys, this is segment 3. I appreciate you guys for joining in again tonight. And look, I know I've got a lot of hell today for this report and running with it. And I was never trying to say, so I'll explain one thing really quick. I misworded my very first title earlier today, and I fixed it on YouTube, and I didn't fix it on X. So when I went back and looked at it, I realized that it kind of looked like I said that he was an actual candidate or really being considered. And I do want to apologize for that because I thought I changed it because after I looked at it, because, you know, you're in a hurry. It's right before the show. You're trying to fix this stuff. And I made a mistake and didn't change. There's 2 separate titles for the same show because the way StreamYard does it, you have to make one for each. Like if you're streaming to separate platforms. And I just messed up the second title. So I apologize to those of you that feel like you were a little misled from that. That wasn't my, I wasn't trying to do that. Obviously, I want to create intrigue and drama around the title, but I don't want to lie on them. So, and it did kind of look like, I have to admit where I'm wrong. So it did kind of look like I was saying that he was, like a front runner or really going to get the job. So I feel bad about that, but you got to roll on, guys. And I think I changed it back. I don't think I can actually. That's the problem. But anyways, I want to talk about the game tonight between TCU and Colorado. Because in my opinion, anyways, I was surprised to see Colorado win these last 2 in a row, and yet and still did they do it. So West Virginia will be facing Colorado in a game that West Virginia should be heavily favored in. There's no doubt about it. And I got to be honest, man, I'm really glad to see it. I think West Virginia is in a good spot here to get to 20 wins for sure. And I will be looking forward to watching West Virginia play and win a Big 12 tournament game. That's just my opinion, man. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to play well. I think they're going to look good, and I think they're going to have some momentum going into Houston. Are they going to win that game? I'm not saying that necessarily, but I'm saying, like, hey, look, at the end of the day, man, I didn't realize I had that all the way up. At the end of the day, man, these Mountaineers are playing well. They won 3 out of 4 down the stretch, and Coach DeVries has a chance to put a special end on this season, no matter what happens in the offseason. So, talking with Jacob there, I feel a little bit better about it because when I spoke with him earlier today, he was like, listen, man, this has popped up out of nowhere over the weekend, talking about Darren DeVries' name being thrown around. So that didn't give me a ton of confidence, right? So I'm glad that we now that we've spoke, I think he's on the list. He's going to be on a lot of lists. But I would say this, of the guys that they're being talked about, Brownell Clemson is the only guy that you, in my opinion, I would even think about arguing over Darren DeVries now that I know what I know. So I that's why it scares me, because I think I know he's the best, and I'm worried that in the tournament he might prove it, and then what are we going to do? So, I'm always worrying about this kind of stuff. But like Koo said in the comments, we have to enjoy the ride while we're riding it. But I'm just one of those people, man. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? And hopefully the shoe doesn't drop on our heads with Coach DeVries moving on to anywhere. We want him to stick around. And I think I can speak for the majority of us when I say that, the season we've had has been special. I think it's got a chance to still be more, even more special. And even if they go out in the very first round of the tournament, I have high expectations for next year. We already talked about them earlier in the day. West Virginia's 2025 recruiting class, which is elite. It really is. Hold on, I'll pull it up really quick. Recruiting class, B-ball. So Kelvin Odie, obviously the shining star of that class, in my opinion. Trent McLean, if you haven't seen him yet, guys, how many in here hasn't seen Trent McLean play yet? Because, he is trying to think of a good comp for him. I was trying to think of one earlier today. He's a 6'9", what I would consider, it depends on where they're going to play him at. Obviously, he's going to be a forward in college, like that Emmett Matthews role or maybe like that Okani role where he can play the 4 or the 3. But he's a guy that if he puts on enough weight can play down low. But he's really like an Okani. He's that stretch 4. I don't know if he'll be as good a rebounder as Okani, but man, is he good. A great athlete, an incredible shooter. And I'm really excited about him. He's at SoCal Academy there in California, by the way. Hawthorne at Huntington Prep, I think, is another one, is 6'9", elite wingspan, elite shot blocker at the rim, and really reminds me of Kevin Durant, just the way he shoots it. Like, I'm talking about mannerisms, the way he looks, not necessarily from a skill perspective. And then Kelvin Odie is like, he is a Javon Carter type player to me. He's a little bigger than Javon, but he's literally, if you look on any list in the nation, like if you had to put a first and second team All-American for high school list together, he would make the first or second all defensive team. That's how good of a defensive player he is, and actually might be the biggest reason he's a 4-star player. You just go check his tape out. You'll see what I mean. He locks people up at 6'5", 220, and truly is. And then he's got that obvious 3-point ball, if you haven't seen that as well. He's right now in college, I would consider him to be a 3-and-D player. So to lose these 3 guys in any capacity would be heartbreaking, guys, because I really do believe with what we have returning next year, along with what we have coming in, plus I trust this group here have proven, if anything, they know how to build a team in 1 year. Just think if we would have had what we were supposed to have this year, we went 25, possibly 27, 28 games. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Am I wrong? Like, this team should have won 25, 28 games. So, I don't know. With Tucker and Stone, I think you get close to that because all it takes is looking at the schedule. Let's see, 1 second. I can show you a couple games. Okay. If you look at West Virginia's schedule, the game against, that last game against not BYU, but the last 2 losses versus Texas Tech and BYU were losses. There was no way around those, but the Baylor loss by 3 when Baylor made it 9 free throws in overtime, 74-71. You don't think Tucker and Stone put us over the top there? What about the BYU game before that, 73-69, where they went to the line a bunch of times in that game? And then there was the TCU game where we lost by 5. There was there was a couple of the Arizona State game where we lost by 8, but it was close down the stretch. And there was a couple more like that, during the season. We don't have to go through every one. But, I mean, there is at least, where are we at, 20 wins? I'd say 24 or 25 wins would have been completely doable. And then you're talking about a top 4 seed probably, depending on which wins those were. So, and look, and another thing is, you can't really predict what would have happened, because if that's happening, then obviously Jonathan Powell isn't playing as much as he is, and probably neither is Okani, based on how he's played in a couple games. Although he's been great on defense, I think our offense has been so stagnant. I think Stone would have probably played a lot more than Okani at times because, like I said, how long we go without scoring it. So just the way I'm looking at it, guys, I appreciate you guys for jumping in here for this one. If you're late, obviously I spoke with Indiana Hoosiers Locked On host, and he does a bunch of other stuff too in that community. I think he's a beat writer. He does a bunch of stuff. Super talented guy, Jacob Goins. He helped put my mind at ease earlier today when I spoke with him. Like I said, he had me because he said that his name just popped up over the weekend out of nowhere. That's usually not good. So I was worried about that. After I talked with him, that was my first reaction at like 11 or 12 when I did the episode with Cody. And now I feel a lot better about it. I may have overreacted a little bit, but I mean, we're fans. That's what we do, right? So you guys sometimes may forget, but even though, I'm on here and some people see me as some kind of reporter, I'm just a fan. I'm not any different than anybody else. I just record my reactions. That's literally it. Doesn't make me better, worse. It's literally nothing. I'm not saying it doesn't take any ability or talent or anything to do this, but you got to be able to jab your jaws for sure. But is it some under pressure immense thing that, no. So point is sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes you overreact, because I'm led by my emotions on here. And certainly I let you guys fuel me. Like I wasn't even going to do a second episode today. And then I was getting harassed so much about the one I did earlier. I'm like, well, screw it. I'll just do another one, just to make those people even more upset. One of them was in here, and then he left. I'm sure they go onto my Facebook profile. They do all kinds of stuff to try to harass people. At the end of the day, while I may respond in the moment, I don't give it another thought the rest of my day, so it's mostly funny, but yeah. So anyway, getting off track, guys. Thanks for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen. Locked On College Basketball, Andy Pat and Isaac Shade is the shiz, guys. They're doing it big. They're doing it the biggest. It's college basketball season. It's March. You got to check them out because they are elite guys, and they'll get you ready for anything college basketball related. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, comment, the whole deal. I mean, you just got to move your thumb or click your clicker. It's not too hard. Hit those notifications as well so when we go live. Join the Discord, and I'll be here for TCU on, what is that, tomorrow? Yeah, that's tomorrow. We got TCU tomorrow. Probably going to be earlier in the day. I'm not sure. Let me see if it's on here yet. Oh, Colorado. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Colorado tomorrow at 3:00. So that's going to be fun, guys. I'll try to get a pregame up. It's probably not going to be able to be done, so I'll do a postgame. Either way, we'll be on here after the fact. We got 666 people watching right now. I don't know if that's a bad omen or not. Somebody leave. All right, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great evening. Have a great rest of your week. And let's go Mountaineers tomorrow, guys. I'll see you then. I'm out of here.